What would you do if one moment of fear changed your whole life? What if your hands did something that your heart never wanted to? This is the story of the night when everything I believed about safety and family was tested. It is the story of the moment when my life split into two parts, before and after. My name is Elena. I was 19 years old when this happened. I lived with my grandmother Rosa in a very small attic above a bakery in a busy town. The room was narrow and low, but it was home. We had one bed, one small stove, and a table where we ate our meals. The walls were cracked and the rain sometimes came through the ceiling, but we were used to it. My grandmother was the only family I had left. My mother died when I was young, and my father disappeared long before that. Rosa raised me with patience and warmth. She was poor, but she gave me all the love she had. I worked in the bakery downstairs, cleaning, carrying flour, and sometimes selling bread. The money was little, but it helped us survive. Life was not easy, but I never complained. I liked working. I liked school too, though I often missed classes because I had to help Rosa. She was weak and coughed often. Still, she smiled when she looked at me. That smile gave me strength every morning. She said I was her reason to keep living. I promised myself I would always protect her, no matter what it cost. Before I go on, let me ask you something. If you enjoy emotional English stories like this one, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, share this story with your friends, and comment below what you would do if you were in my place. The bakery owner, Mr. Dalton, was not a kind man. He shouted at his workers, paid them little, and never smiled. His face was red and his hands were thick like the wood of old trees. He often came upstairs to remind us of the rent. Every month he climbed the steps, his boots loud on the wooden floor, and stood in the doorway with his arms crossed. If we were late with even one payment, he shouted at me in front of Rosa. I hated how he looked at her with his cold, heavy eyes. Sometimes he stayed too long, asking questions about my work and my hours, but his voice carried a weight that made my skin crawl. Rosa always told me to stay quiet. "Do not answer him, Elena. He is dangerous," she whispered after he left. But I was young, and silence felt like weakness. That month was harder than most. The bakery had fewer customers, and Mr. Dalton cut my hours. We barely had enough money to buy food, and the rent was waiting at the end of the week. I tried not to show my worry, but Rosa saw it. One evening as we ate bread and soup, she placed her hand on mine and said softly, "We will get through this. We always do." I wanted to believe her, but my heart was heavy. I could see in her tired eyes that she was afraid too. It was Tuesday night when everything changed. I came back from school late, carrying my books and a loaf of bread the baker had thrown away because it was too hard to sell. When I reached the attic stairs, I heard voices. My chest tightened. One voice was my grandmother's, trembling, begging. The other was loud and cruel. It was Mr. Dalton. He was shouting about the rent. "You have no excuse. Pay now or get out." I froze for a second, my hand on the stair rail. My heart beat so hard it felt like it was shaking my whole body. Then I heard a crash, like a chair falling. My grandmother cried out. I dropped my books and ran up the stairs 2 at a time. The door was locked from inside. I banged on it with my fists, shouting for him to stop. There was no answer. My grandmother screamed again. Without thinking, I ran to the small window on the side of the attic. It was always a little open for air. I pulled it hard and forced my way in. My knees scraped against the wood, but I did not care. I pushed myself inside, and the sight before me made my blood turn cold. Mr. Dalton was gripping my grandmother's arm so hard that her thin skin looked white under his fingers. Her face was twisted in fear. She tried to push him away, but he laughed. Her dress was torn near the shoulder. In that moment, I felt something inside me break. Rage and fear burned in my chest. I picked up a broomstick lying near the stove and ran toward him. I swung it with all my strength and hit his back. He shouted and turned around. His face was full of anger. With one heavy hand, he slapped me across the face. The world spun and I fell on the floor. My cheek burned and tears filled my eyes. He shouted again, telling me to stay out of it, then turned back to Rosa. I struggled to stand up. My hand reached into my pocket. I always carried a small kitchen knife, not sharp, but useful for cutting bread or apples at work. My fingers closed around it. My mind was not thinking clearly. I only knew I had to stop him. I shouted at him to get away from her and ran forward. He did not expect me to come again so soon. He turned, his eyes wide, but it was too late. My arms swung without control. I felt the knife push against him. Then I saw red. Blood poured out. Mr. Dalton cried out in shock and pain. I froze, staring at the blood on my hands. The knife dropped to the floor. My grandmother's scream filled the room. "Elena, what have you done?" she cried, pulling me into her arms. I was shaking. "I did not want to hurt him, Grandma." I only wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Mr. Dalton fell to his knees, clutching his side. His shirt turned dark with blood. His breathing was heavy and broken. I thought he would die in front of me. My hands would not stop shaking. My whole body felt weak. I wanted to close my eyes and wake up in a different world. My grandmother quickly took the phone from the table and called for an ambulance. Her voice shook as she told them a man was hurt and needed help. I sat on the floor, my palms sticky with blood, unable to move. Outside, voices grew louder as neighbors gathered. Soon the room was full of strangers staring at us, whispering. I felt like a criminal, though I only wanted to protect the one person I loved most in this world. The sound of the ambulance siren grew louder, and I sat frozen on the wooden floor. My grandmother's hands held mine tightly, but even her warmth could not stop the cold that was spreading through me. When the door finally opened, 2 men in white uniforms rushed inside. They looked at Mr. Dalton first. One of them pressed cloth against his side, while the other shouted for help to carry him to the stretcher. His face was pale, his eyes filled with pain, but he was still alive. I wanted to feel relief, but guilt pressed on my chest like a heavy stone. The police came soon after. Their blue lights filled the street, and neighbors whispered from every corner. A tall officer picked up the knife from the floor and looked at me. His eyes were calm, but I felt judged all the same. He asked my grandmother what had happened. Rosa's voice shook as she explained that I only tried to protect her. I wanted to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. The officer listened and then told us to come with them. He did not shout, but my knees trembled as I followed him down the narrow steps. At the police station, everything felt too bright and too clean. The smell of coffee mixed with the smell of metal. They asked me to sit in a chair while my grandmother stayed close beside me. A kind officer with gray hair brought us water. He spoke slowly, as if he wanted me to understand every word.
"We know you are frightened," he said, "but you must tell us the truth. The judge will need to hear your story."
His voice was calm, but I could not stop shaking. My grandmother answered most of the questions, saying again and again that I was only trying to protect her. Hours passed, though it felt like days. They moved us to a small room with a bed and table so we could rest until morning. Rosa and I sat side by side on the bed. She held my face in her hands and whispered, "You are my brave girl. Do not lose hope." I wanted to believe her, but I could still see Mr. Dalton's face when the knife went in. Every time I closed my eyes, the image returned. That night, sleep never came. The next morning, a woman came to see us. She wore a dark suit and carried a bag full of papers. Her voice was strong, yet gentle. She introduced herself as our lawyer. "Do not worry," she said. "Mr. Dalton is alive. He lost much blood, but the doctors say he will recover." My heart lifted for the first time since that terrible moment. I had not killed him. The lawyer continued, "The judge understands your situation. You are young, and you were defending your grandmother. Still, there must be a hearing." Later that day, we were taken to the court. The building was large and cold, with high windows that made me feel small. I stood before the judge, my hands shaking. He was an older man with kind eyes, but his face was serious. He asked me to explain what happened. My voice cracked, and tears filled my eyes as I spoke. I told him I only wanted to save my grandmother. I told him I never meant to hurt anyone. The room was silent while I spoke. Even the sound of my sobs felt too loud. When I finished, the judge leaned forward. "You are a brave young woman," he said. "But you must remember that hurting someone can never be the answer. There are always other ways, even when you feel trapped." His words cut through me. I nodded quickly, unable to speak. Then he added, "Because of your age, and because you acted in fear to protect your grandmother, you will not be punished like a criminal. But you cannot stay in that attic anymore. You must find a safer place to live." Relief filled me, yet fear too. If we could not stay in the attic, where would we go? We had no family, no money for another rent. As we left the court, my grandmother's eyes were red, but she held my hand tightly. She whispered, "We will not go back there. We will never see him again." Her voice shook, but her words carried strength. For a few days we had nowhere. A kind neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, took us into her small apartment. She gave us food and a bed to share. I continued going to school, though it was hard to concentrate. Everyone in the street knew what had happened. Some looked at me with pity, others with fear. I felt marked, as if a shadow followed me wherever I went. My grandmother found part-time work in a sewing factory. The money was small, but at least it was honest. I continued working at the bakery, though I avoided Mr. Dalton. He was still in the hospital, and I did not want to imagine the day he returned. At night, I sometimes woke up sweating, my hands shaking. I washed them again and again, though no blood remained. The memory lived inside me, and I could not wash it away. One evening, while I was helping Rosa with dinner at Mrs. Lopez's apartment, a knock came at the door. A woman stood there, holding a folder. She introduced herself as someone from a local charity group. I read about your case in the newspaper, she said softly. Many people were touched by your story. They want to help. I did not understand at first. Help us? Why? We were poor and broken. What could strangers do for us? The woman opened the folder and showed my grandmother a letter. It explained that the charity had found a small house for us. We could live there rent-free for 1 year while Rosa recovered and while I finished my studies. My, grandmother cried as she read the letter. Tears ran down her face, but this time they were tears of joy. She hugged me tightly, repeating, God is watching us, Elena. He has not forgotten us. When we moved into the new house, I felt as if I could breathe for the first time. It was small, but it had 2 rooms, a real kitchen, and a bathroom that did not leak. For the first time in years, we had a home that felt safe. The first night we slept there, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I promised myself I would study harder, work harder, and never let my grandmother suffer again. Still, the shadow of that night followed me. Sometimes when I walked through the market, I thought I saw Mr. Dalton's face in the crowd. Sometimes I woke in the middle of the night, hearing his angry voice in my head. I asked myself again and again, did I do the right thing? Could I have stopped him without using the knife? I will never know the answer. But I know this. In that moment, I chose to protect the person I love most. My hands carried the weight of that choice, and they always will. Yet I also carry my grandmother's love and the kindness of strangers who gave us hope. Life will never return to what it was before, but maybe, with time, I can learn to live with both truths inside me. The first weeks in our new home felt like a dream. Each morning I woke to the soft light coming through clean windows, not the broken glass of the attic. The roof did not leak when it rained, and the air smelled of fresh paint, not dust and mold. My grandmother smiled more often, and that was the greatest gift of all. I helped her set up the kitchen, place our few clothes in the cupboard, and hang her old photographs on the wall. We had little, but it felt like enough. For the first time in years, safety surrounded us. Still, even in that quiet house, the past did not let me go. At night, I sometimes woke up gasping. I saw Mr. Dalton's face in my dreams, his eyes wide with shock, his shirt stained with red. My hands burned as if the blood was still there. I would sit up, shaking, and touch my grandmother's shoulder to make sure she was beside me. Only then could I breathe again. Rosa never asked about my nightmares. She simply held me, her hand rubbing circles on my back, and whispered, "You are safe, Elena. We are safe now." School became harder. I tried to focus on my lessons, but whispers followed me. Some classmates asked if it was true that I stabbed a man. Others looked at me with fear, as if I was dangerous. I hated that feeling. I wanted to scream that I was not violent, that I was only a girl trying to save her grandmother. But words felt useless. I learned to keep my head down and walk quickly through the halls. My teachers treated me kindly, though. One of them, Mrs. Carter, often asked if I was doing all right. She told me I was stronger than I knew, and that my story could become my power, not my shame. Her words stayed with me. Work at the bakery also changed. Mr. Dalton was still in the hospital, so his son managed the shop. He was a quiet man, not unkind, but distant. I worked hard, sweeping the floors, carrying bags of flour, and cleaning the ovens. I avoided questions from customers. When people looked at me too long, I felt my skin grow hot. At the end of each day, I walked home quickly, eager to close the door of our new house and sit by the fire with Rosa. One afternoon, as I was leaving school, Mrs. Carter called me into her classroom. She said she wanted to show me something. On her desk lay a stack of papers, each filled with writing from other students. "These are essays," she explained, "about courage. I asked them to write about someone they admired." She handed me one. My hands shook as I read the first line. "I admire Elena because she saved her grandmother's life." My eyes filled with tears. I looked at Mrs. Carter in disbelief. She smiled gently. "Not everyone judges you, Elena. Some see the truth." That evening I told Rosa about the essay. She smiled through her tiredness. "See, my girl," she said, "your pain can still bring light. Do not hide from your story. One day, it will guide you." I did not fully understand then, but her words planted a seed in me. Weeks turned into months. Life began to take a new shape. Rosa worked at the sewing factory, though her cough grew worse with time. I studied harder than ever, determined to finish school and find a job that would give us a better future. Sometimes, when I walked past the hospital, I wondered about Mr. Dalton. Was he still angry? Would he try to find me once he was well? The thought made my stomach twist. The answer came sooner than I expected. One evening, as I returned from school, I saw a figure standing near our gate. My heart raced when I recognized him. Mr. Dalton. His face looked thinner, his movements slower, but his eyes were the same cold gray. I froze on the path. He looked at me for a long time, then spoke. His voice was quieter than before, but sharp. "You ruined my life," he said. "You marked me forever." His words cut deep. I wanted to run, but my feet would not move. Rosa came out of the house then, leaning on the doorway. When she saw him, her face turned pale. But before she could speak, Mr. Dalton raised his hand. "Do not worry, old woman. I am not here to fight. The law is already watching me. I will not touch you again. But remember this, girl. Blood does not wash away so easily." He turned and walked away, leaving me trembling. That night, I could not eat. Rosa sat beside me, her hand on mine. "Do not fear him," she said firmly. "He has no power over us anymore." But I could not believe it. His words echoed in my head. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, asking myself if I would ever be free of that night. The next day I went to see Mrs. Carter after school. I told her everything. She listened quietly, then said, "Elena, guilt is a heavy stone. If you carry it alone, it will crush you. But if you share it, it becomes lighter." She suggested I join a small writing group at the community center, where young people told their stories. At first I refused. I was afraid of more judgment. But Mrs. Carter insisted. "Your story has already been written by others, Elena. If you want to own it, you must tell it yourself." I went to the group the next week. My hands shook as I sat in the circle. Around me were boys and girls with different stories: loss, anger, hope. When it was my turn, I spoke about the night in the attic. My voice broke and tears filled my eyes, but I kept speaking. To my surprise, No one looked at me with fear. They nodded. Some even cried. Afterward, one girl came to me and whispered, "You are not alone." That moment changed something inside me. For the first time, I saw that my story was not only about guilt. It was also about love, courage, and survival. Yes, blood was on my hands, but so was the strength to protect someone I loved. Months passed, and my confidence slowly returned. I began to help at the community center, reading stories to younger children. They listened with wide eyes, and sometimes they asked about my scarred cheek, the one Mr. Dalton had struck. I did not tell them everything, but I said, "Scars can mean you survived something hard." They nodded as if they understood. One day, Mrs. Carter gave me a notebook. "Write it all down," she said. "Your story can help others." I began writing each night after Rosa went to sleep. At first it was painful. The memories returned with every word. But soon I felt lighter, as if each page carried away some of my burden. My grandmother often found me at the table with ink on my fingers. She kissed my head and whispered, "This is healing." As the year ended, the charity group came again. They asked about our plans, since our free stay would finish soon. I worried about losing our home, but Rosa surprised me. She stood tall and said, "We will manage. My granddaughter will finish school, and I will keep working. We are not afraid." Her strength filled the room. The charity workers smiled and offered to extend our support. They said many people had been touched by my story. I cried with relief. Looking back now, I know my life changed forever on that Tuesday night. I cannot erase it. I cannot erase the blood, the fear, or Mr. Dalton's words. But I can choose how to carry them. I carry them as a lesson, not a curse. I carry them as proof that love can give us strength we did not know we had. My grandmother's health grows weaker each year, but her spirit is unbroken. She tells everyone that I saved her life. I always answer that she saved mine too, with her love and her belief in me. When I hold her hand, I feel both the weight of the past and the hope of the future. If you ask me today who I am, I will not answer with fear. I will say, I am Elena. I am the girl who carried blood on her hands, but also the girl who found a way to turn pain into strength. I am the girl who will never stop protecting the people she loves. And I hope my story, painful as it is, will remind others that even in our darkest moments, we can still find a light strong enough to lead us home.